Your paint protection film looks like this after just a few months. But why? What went wrong here? This 2025 Dodge Ram 1500 had this film installed in January of 2025. It was a new installer. They were just learning. Sometimes when you're just learning, the results are not that good. There's fingers lifting, there's some adhesion issues, there's bubbles, so a lot of things that could have been prevented. By the end of this video, I'll show you how each of these things happened, what caused them, and more importantly, how you can prevent them from happening on your next install. But first, we're going to go over something that most people won't tell you when you're starting PPF. Paint protection film takes a long time to master. 2 years can be considered nothing. It's not an easy task when you're first starting out with this. I've got almost a decade doing just paint protection film. I still make mistakes because some things you just lapse in judgment, you're trying to rush, you do something, and oops, now I got to replace something. The learning curve with PPF is different than a lot of things. In most cases, you'll start something, and as you go, you're gradually going to get better, and you're gradually going to get better. Suddenly, you become professional, you master it. With PPF, sometimes you can be pretty flat with very minimal gains for a long time, and then suddenly you just shoot right up, and then you'll flatten out again. It can be a little disconcerting to some people, and that's why, as I said in a previous video, I don't think everybody can be really good at it, but I do think everybody can at least be somewhat good at it. Now keep in mind there are exceptions to every rule, and there's some people that will just pick this up like that. They get it, they get a couple months in, they kind of figure out what they're doing, they can read the material, and they have no issues progressing very fast in this profession. These are something simple, like a lifting edge underneath the fog light. These are what's known as fingers. Those are a common occurrence. If you don't stretch the film enough, they're going to pop back up because you can't seal that edge. This one there is what is, I don't have an actual technical term for this, but there is a seam right here because of the way this film is. And it's basically pressed too close together, so there's no way to flatten this film out. These are all mistakes that are going to end up costing installers, especially newer installers, thousands and thousands of dollars as they begin this journey. This is another example of a lifting edge right on the inside. That edge is lifting. These things can easily be prevented, in this case specifically, by heat sealing that edge. That locks that edge in to make sure it's not going to lift up like that. If we move down here to where this bumper is, same thing here. This particular corner, there tends to be a little bunch of a material that happens right here when you're doing this install. So one thing you can do is make a little relief cut in there where it's hidden so everything still folds over, or you just need to stretch this a tiny bit more. And again, heat seal this and this won't happen. This is another interesting example. You can see these. This is underneath the film. This is in the adhesion layer. Basically what this is you're putting a little too much stress on the film when you're installing it. So if you use too much alcohol, you get this set, you try to push stuff out where you've already sealed it, you're going to get marks like this underneath the film. This is another thing that's going to cost you thousands and thousands of dollars in redos when you have really picky clients that notice this stuff. On a lighter vehicle, you can get away with it, but this one is a dark color, so when you get in the sunlight, that's very visible. That specific issue is one I even still sometimes have trouble with because I tend to be heavy-handed. So I squeegee heavy, and I have to pull back and go a little bit lighter and then come back with a heavier pass just to make sure I'm not moving anything. Dialing your slip solution and your alcohol ratio makes this a lot easier to resist. The other time you're going to notice big issues with this, if like on this hood you have these big deep recesses here, as a beginner these can be really hard to deal with, and that's where a lot of the times you'll get stuff like that happening. If you've learned something from this video so far, how about you squeegee that like button for me, and so I can keep producing more content just like this for you beginners out there. So if you're trying to resist something like that, especially along this edge, when you're going through and doing your patterns, you're going to need to use alcohol when you get in this area, of course, but when you get here and you get this down, you're going to have about this much left you're going to want to leave loose. As long as you tack this properly, it's going to stay down. You can then pop this up a bit, put more slip solution in there. That's just going to flush everything out, allow it to slide a little bit more just in case it got a bit dry from all the alcohol you sprayed over here. And then you can just come back and get this to the edge and just do this final little bit here if you need to with just some extra Tack solution. That way you don't have any risk of getting those weird lines in there. Another common issue with beginners is going to be contamination from either poor prep work or you're just a little bit slower and more dust kicks up. So right in this area, you can see all these little white dots. That's contamination under this film. So this is a lower area. It could have just been dirty and the installer didn't clean it good enough. With stuff like this, a lot of times dirt can fall out of here and that'll leave some contamination like right there. And then same thing over here. It's just little things you need to be conscientious of. Prep is very, very important when it comes to paint protection film. When you get stuff like this here, the easiest way to prep this is when you're doing, doesn't matter, new, used, whatever, be very thorough on no matter what vehicle you get. You can get a brush. There is a rubber seal under here. You can use your all-purpose cleaner on the seals, degreaser, whatever you're comfortable with. When you're cleaning it, get a brush in here, get under these seals to make sure there's no dirt. When you're getting under here, you can use just a little detail brush to go around it. When you go to dry it, blow your air gun underneath here. Make sure you're getting as much dirt out as possible. And before you go to actually put the film on, I like to use a hard card. I know with Chrysler vehicles specifically, these tend to be not super tight. They're not loose, but they're not super tight. You can usually put a microfiber around a hard card, put a little bit of alcohol on the microfiber itself, because I find alcohol tends to pull dirt out a little better, and just run it around the edge here. Just make sure that's as clean as possible. The trouble with paint protection film and dirt like this, it's an invisible problem and you're not going to know until it's too late. This mistake is invisible until it's too late and it's in your film, and now you can't do anything about it. So prep is very important. If you find you're having a lot of contamination issues, you need to evaluate what you're doing and problem solve to figure out where the contamination is coming from. When you washed your vehicle, did you clean it properly? Did you degrease or APC as you should? Did you blow any of your certain areas out where you know dirt tends to stay? Are you using tap water? That can have minerals in it, which can cause contamination. Sometimes there's sand in your water lines just randomly. I've had it happen myself, which is why I switched to distilled water, which is super cheap. And if you're not doing it, the $5 per jug of distilled water I use is way cheaper than me replacing this hood because some crap's coming out of the water line. Distilled water, definitely recommended. But make sure your prep is done. If your prep is good and you're sure the contamination's not coming in for that, then you can evaluate and move on to other stuff. Like I said, water lines. Is the inside of your bottle falling apart because of chemical solutions? Do you have too much soap and it's causing gum up? One thing that helps that is like an inline filter. So there's a lot of solutions to go through. If you're not sure, work through the simplest ones and go backwards from where you started. So if you happen to be installing in the wintertime, one thing that will definitely save you from disaster is when you bring your vehicles in, if they're very covered in snow, explain to the customer that you just need it to melt. All of that snow that's underneath your undercarriage, when you're working on something like a bumper, rockers, whatever, if that breaks free as you're doing an install, all that crap hits the floor and all that splashes right back up into you and whatever piece of film you're working on. 99 times out of 100, that film is now completely filled with crap and you can't use it. One big benefit about installing in the winter, though, is the amount of dust floating around in the air is very minimal. It's very easy to get clean installs in the wintertime. Be conscientious, though. You will have to adjust your slip solutions. They're going to need to be less soap in it because the temperature is not as high. It's not as humid. So just keep those minor changes in mind. Another major thing I tend to see with newer installers is perfectionism. Now, perfectionism in this particular position is going to kill all of your progress when you're learning. Now, I know that sounds counterproductive and counterintuitive, but hear me out. Basically, think of it this way. We're putting this hood on here, right? There's a little dirt speck right here. So now I'm going to lift the film up a little bit, spray it out, get that dirt speck out. But now I have two more dirt specks over here. So now I try to get those dirt specks out. And now I have two over here. Every time you lift that film, you have a risk of getting more dirt in there. So when you're new, learn the basics, figure out how to get this hood on here first, because when you're new, you're not going to be sending this out to a customer, or at least you better not be. Don't do that. Take it off, try again. This is a very systematic approach, but systematic approach when you're learning something like PPF is going to benefit you in the long run a whole lot more than immediate perfectionism. As you get better, you understand the process, you can read the material, your installs are clean, you know you're not getting any crap from your water supply. If you're using distilled water, for instance, you don't have any soap gunk coming out. Once you're at that point, then you go back to focus on perfectionism. Now, that's not to say be be a slob, because that doesn't work either. You need a happy medium, but you need to understand that if you're trying to be perfect, all it's going to do is cause you more headaches. This is one of those things, as you get better, perfection comes with time, it comes with experience, and it's just going to happen. And one day you'll do it and be like, oh, this is awesome. One of my very worst installs taught me this very important lesson. As a beginner, you ask, what is the best way for me to start? Find a shop you can go to. A lot of shops don't necessarily want to hire super green people. Dealerships are a great entry point. Their standards are lower. They're willing to train, willing to work with you in most cases. But if you're a beginner and you're just looking to start on your own, buy some stuff off of Amazon, wherever. Perfect place to start. Simple pieces. Counterintuitive. A mirror. Not a simple piece. It's small, so you can do a ton of these versus this hood. These aren't real numbers, but say the hood is $200. This probably cost you $10. The benefit of doing something small like this, besides being cheap, is you have to stretch it in the same way I'll have to stretch on the hood. It's got to stretch from this side to this side. There's a little bit of a concave indent here that you have to worry about, so you got to figure that out. There's some edges you have to lock and line up, so you're going to learn that. Mirrors are a great tool for a beginner. They're super frustrating. There's still mirrors that I cannot stand doing, and they're my least favorite part of every single vehicle. Grand Wagoneers, for instance, those mirrors are dumb and they make no sense. But they teach you everything you need to know. That's why mirrors are such a great thing. Anytime I'm training somebody new, totally green, mirrors is it. So when you go to do your next install, if something I've shown you in this video today, how to deal with fingers, prep, stuff like that, saves you from a costly comeback, how about you hit that subscribe button, and then I can see you guys again and we can go over some more cool beginner stuff. Until then, I'll see you in the next one.